Yeah, so just for context from me, so ever since I first began coaching, I've only used modified games. And this was, I guess, 4 years ago when I started coaching. And for me, it was just something that it made more sense, right? They're going to learn the best by being in the game. And I think as I guess time has gone on, that's become more and more of a conversation. But basically, my question is, I've never used isolated skills training. And so I'm starting to wonder if that's something that I need to incorporate. And if so, to what extent? Obviously, I think at the younger ages, you need it because they need to learn. But then as you move to like middle school, high school, college, how much do you guys do that? How important do you feel it is? What would be kind of like your idea of how to mix that in? And I guess just would my teams benefit from me doing that, or is all modified games good? I just am kind of looking for some thoughts.
I'm assuming you coach teams, right, Miss Katie?
Yes.
All right. You don't need to do isolated skill training. Okay. I don't do isolated skill training. And I have 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds. As a club coach, my job is to, as a team coach, it's the only time they're with the team, right? They can do isolated skills training at home. They can train on their own at home. With me, I have to do things. It's the only time that I have the team in the collective, if that makes sense. So I work on things that can only be worked on when they're in the collective, like decision-making, spatial awareness, playing with your head up, right? And so things that make them cognitively better players. You need to have, oh my God. You need to have the team together to work on those things. You can't work on scanning in the backyard. You can't work on decision-making in the backyard. You can't work on understanding how to play in the gaps in between the lines in the backyard. You need the rest of the team to do that. And so when they're with me, that's what I work on. They can do all the dribbling skills in the backyard they want. They can work on their first touch off of a wall or with a parent or sibling. They can, do dribble through cones till their heart's content. They can do all of those things in the backyard. What I'm being paid to do is to teach them the game. And so I work on the things that can only be worked on when they're in the collective as a group. So the things that they can do individually, I tell them that's for you to go home and work on. If you don't go home and work on and get better at that, somebody will catch you eventually and leapfrog you and take your spot, right? It's a meritocracy still. And so you have to go home and work on that. Right now, you might be part of my best 10 for a 7v7 team. But two seasons from now, you might not be if somebody on the second team or in the second group, and there's not a big gap between those groups, is working harder than you at home, and their first touch is improving, and their skills are improving and whatnot. And you can have those conversations with young kids as long as you don't sound like a jerk when you're doing it. But you can have those conversations with younger players and say, hey, look, right? One of the talks I give 9-year-olds is, you all are on the first team right now. There's a second team. Everybody on the second team is trying to get where? To the first team, right? Can I carry 18 kids on the first team? I cannot. So if somebody from the second team moves to the first team, what has to happen? Somebody from the first team needs to move where? To the second team, right? They'll get it. And I'll tell you what, they fight like heck in training. They work. My players work hard. And I know there's probably going to be some detractors of that in our little comments, but that's how iron sharpens iron, and that's how you develop that grit and that heart and that fight. And my players send me videos all the time of them juggling and working at home and all the other things. So to answer your question, when they're with the team, you work on team things. That's my opinion, at least.
Any other opinions on that? Maybe at the college level, Kai, Jessica, you've had some experience there. What do we do at that point?
Go ahead, Jess.
I mean, I can't say it's individualized like ball and person, but we do our touches on the ball every day. It's our veggies we get every morning. So before training, like it's part of our warm up. Before games, we have cones set out so they can do their whatever, it's like inside out touches, zigzags, whatever, just a short little touches on the ball, because that's something that I just kind of think from the youngest to the oldest, like you have to be touching the ball. You have to be, the more you touch the ball, the better you get at it. And so that's kind of where I like it, as much as we would love to send kids home and have them doing things at home, they're not all doing them. I think one of the things that Mike touches on a lot on Twitter is that it's the culture that he's around. The kids there grow up in a culture that want to do this, that want to be, better and work hard and do things on their outside. I see the split in both of my two kids. Like my daughter loves playing soccer, but I'm like, hey, go outside and kick a ball. She's like, yeah, I'm good. But my son is constantly dribbling his Snorlax around my house because he can't stop kicking anything in his life. And so, I don't have to say anything to him. He'll go outside and kick the ball. I have a futsal ball rolling around my house right now because I've decided that at least that one will stay on the ground. But, so I think that those touches are super important, but I do think that you can get them in game like situations and not necessarily just individualized one person with the ball, because that is very boring, and that's even boring as a coach, like to teach. So it's hard to, that's something that I really focused on, like Corver this year, and that was awesome. I loved the skills that the girls were learning, but it was just a lot of time and pretty boring. So I had to make incentives for them. I made them these little cards that every time they filled up their skills, I would get them a Gatorade. And so, that was the like incentive to do it on their own and things like that. But yeah, touches and things like that's just, it's your veggies. You got to do a little bit of every day.
I would say in the age groups you just asked me and Jess about, I mean, you could train one day a week and just watch video. No one cares. You either win or you lose, right? So in the end, it honestly, I mean, I'm a contract coach, right? So if I win, I get another contract. If I lose, I don't. They can care less the process of how I got there. And I learned that the hard way about 10 years ago. We played great, beautiful soccer and got crushed by Julie Ertz and a bunch of other teams. So it didn't matter. They were like, you didn't win. It doesn't matter if they got better. Win, right? So I will also add, and one thing I've become a little more understanding about, I would say, because I think I used to be the old, what would you call it, Army, Alabama football coach from the 50s. Like, we're going to do it this way. Everyone's fitting in this way, and this is how we're going to do it. I live by the phrase, there's never and never and never and always. So I think the group on this conversation is your perfect example. South Texas, somewhere in the South, Arkansas, San Diego, the mountains of Utah and Ohio, like our approach to what our environment, our group of people might be slightly different to enhance what our group of people are most passionate about. So like, I think of a couple of things. I had to write them down, but I used to do it with my team that was in Detroit, and we would do once a month. Now I also had them 4 days a week, but once a month we would do a purely isolated training. And the reason was, when we all say the game's the teacher, they get, okay, well, at some point we have to teach them if they don't watch soccer and live in a full culture of soccer. So instead of battling, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? Well, we reverse thought about it. Well, why aren't they doing it? Competency. They weren't competent of what to do at home by themselves, right? So we would train once a month for maybe it was just 30 minutes at the beginning of training, and we do 5 or 6 individual isolated exercises they can do at home. So now there's definitely no excuse of, I don't know how to do it. What should I do? It didn't hurt them, right? And we had them more, but we would train them so they knew what they were doing. Now, if we have to do that for 3 years, that's its own problem, right? But if we do it for 3 months, 4 months, where you're giving them tidbits, it changes the game, you make it fun, give them an ice cream, whatever, you're enhancing their competency to do it at home also. But then I also say, and I'm from the Tovo school, so and I've sat with Bean at a coffee shop for 3 hours, going back and forth on things. I also say, well, why are you doing it? Is the bigger question. Like, half the time I do it is, I hate to call it, team bonding. Like, we'll do a passing exercise versus a passing exercise. First team to 10 dribbles across wins. Like, so it's isolated, but it's like a little more rah-rah bonding, get people out of their comfort zone, like supporting each other, cheering, dealing with the pressure of winning a quick game, juggle ladder or whatever. Do I think you should do it for an hour, 4 days a week? No. But if you win at our level, no one cares. But if you do it, 15 minutes, or like we'll do a tight, Y or IX triangle for 5.5 minutes. We'll set the timer and we'll go fly, fly, fly. And we do it to finish the warm up for us. So getting them warm, it makes them communicate louder early, coaching, stuff like that. If I was doing it to teach decision making, scanning, and whatever, then I think I fail. But if someone asked me, why'd you do a passing triangle? I'd be like, just get some of our quieter people talking early, get some combining. Yeah, there's some visuals of indigo out and whatever, but it's also fun. We play for competition, points over the week, but we don't do it for the max of 10 minutes, right? And the max. And when you do it enough, your max can go shorter because they have an understanding of what you're trying to do. So I think you ask yourself, well, why am I doing it? And then you're time sensitive to, is your why on why you're doing it equal to the time you're spending on it? And then my last part, it goes back to never, 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 and always. What I've also learned is not everyone learns the same. So some of our kids, even at the college level, only learn by doing. What's that? Kinesthetic. Then we have kids that they can do it and then have to come back in the office and have to see it on video. And then there's groups that need to call me and train at 10 a.m. the next day to walk through it one-on-one because there's too much going on, right? So understanding learning behaviors and styles, and I think isolated training with opposed, with small-sided, big game, whatever, hits a lot of training notes. And sometimes some of those kids are like, I can't understand when so much is going on, where some kids only understand when it's all going on. So I think in context of time and space and all that, if you present enough ways of learning to people, you'll hit more people. And to be honest, it goes back to the original question. Well, you could be halfway through a season and be like, well, my whole team's kinesthetic now. Or these two kids always need to be pulled out to the side and see it isolated, quiet, called in 10 minutes before practice. Hey, we're going to work on this turn. Hey, go left, go right. Like, I have 3 kids on my team that are completely if then that kids. And they don't want anything else. They don't want to be creative. They want to be now part of the community we live in our state. They want to be successful. They want to hit the mark. They want to do that. Then I got the kid from Huntington Beach that wants her own freedom, do whatever, and she just wants you to give her 20 ideas and choose. So I think it's never and never, never and always.
All right,
Yeah,
so we're going to
That
go ahead.
really quick, that reminded me of COVID. We had, when we finally got back on the field, we had the kids in 6x6 boxes so they couldn't touch each other, and everything was a relay, because otherwise standing there in that box doing whatever you're doing by yourself was so boring. So that's where we definitely, the kids learn, like, competition is more fun than just hanging out.